Hey guys, I've had a couple of friends ask me about how to graft onto a new tree, and I've done this a few times. I'm not a professional by any means, but I have been able to, through trial and error, go through a few of these grafting processes, and now I think I'm getting to the point where it's been a lot easier. A buddy of mine gave me a few cuttings of his Tangelo orange tree. He brought some Tangelo fruit to work, and those fruit were very good, very good quality fruit. And so we're going to try to graft them today. So I'm going to go through the process as quickly as I can, as detailed and as quickly as I can, okay? But anyhow, the first part of picking grafts or cuttings is that you see that it's a fruiting branch. So this has signs of where the branch has produced fruit before, and it's an active plant. You can see that it's got starting to have new growth here, and it's still pretty green. It hasn't browned on the thicker parts of the branches yet. And so this is a healthy one, pretty decent size. There's a couple of them here that are smaller, which will probably be harder to graft. Not that it won't work, but it's just a little bit harder. Here's another one here that's pretty decent. Sometimes you can leave the cutting with the Y, but it makes it a little bit harder to protect. Let's see here, and we have this other one here that's pretty, pretty thick, pretty green, has old signs of fruiting, even new buds. So that's a really good one as well. This one's a small one, but look at that. It already has a bud on there. Obviously, we wouldn't let that bud grow this year, maybe not even next year. Because the branch is too not mature enough yet, not strong enough yet, where the limb would be able to support a fruit. But anyhow, we're gonna pick. Let's start with this one. I am gonna do a couple, maybe 2 or 3 grafts. It's because it's a numbers game, right? So in order to make sure that you have at least one that works, we're gonna do maybe 3 grafts, and hopefully one of those will stick. But lately I've been having a lot more success. The method that I'm gonna go over today is gonna be the Cleft graft, and I'll explain that in more detail. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is take our working tools, and here I have my grafting kit. Here is our grafting knife. It depends on what you're more comfortable with, but it has a hooked blade and a straight blade. For me, I really like my utility knife. It has a very sharp, almost razor-like edge, and it also has a box cutting edge that works really well as well for fine cutting. But the first thing we're gonna do is I mixed here maybe 20% alcohol with 80% water, and this is good for maybe about 24 hours before it starts to degrade. But we're gonna take this and we're gonna disinfect all of our tools. Let's see here. And we're just disinfecting everything in case we decide to use it. Okay. Then we're going to take our branch, give that a little bit there to start drying. We can start with pruning off the little ends, all the little ends there. And if you see all the little nodes where the old leaves were, that's where our new growth is going to happen. Let's see, we're going to go up the branch. I mean, I would love to keep this here because we know it's a little fruiting branch already, but this is already a little bit long. So what we're gonna do is we're probably gonna cut this at an angle right there, and that's our cutting. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start sharpening the bottom end of this branch. Oh, be careful. All right, so we're gonna pick a good place to make this cutting. We're gonna straighten out this cut here. Okay, and you see that we still have quite a bit of nodes, which kind of make it harder. You kind of want to find a straight long piece, you know, without any nodes, but you can still get it done, and that's what we're gonna do here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna leave the node on top so that we have the sides freed up, and we're gonna create a tapered end on each side. So here we go. And so what I do is instead of cutting, I set my knife in where I'm gonna cut, and I pull the branch towards me. I feel that it's a little bit safer. Keep myself from getting cut. Not that I haven't cut myself before, but you kind of work on it, you know, step by step, little by little. All right, looks like we got one end down to about the middle there. Okay, and I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a middle part of that branch. That's the core of the tree. There's the bark there, the green part, and that light white part is your cambium layer. And so the mistake that people make is that they make these cuttings and they put it right in the middle of the branch of the trunk of the tree that it's going into, and those parts don't align, and that's where all the nutrient travels through. So if it doesn't align, their cutting dies. So we need to, if our branch that we're going to graft onto is not the same size, we need to go to the edge of the branch and make sure that those cambium layers align. Okay, let's try the other side now. Nice and slow, take your time. You know, if you mess this up, you can just start over a little bit higher. Here I cut a little too much maybe, but what we can do is we can make that the inside of the graft. And we want it to be as even as possible without ridges, so they can lay flat inside the cleft, as it's called. It's going to be a V-shaped cut inside of the tree, and basically just a split of that branch where the existing tree. Let's see here. All right, let's try this one here to get the fine end. Nice and easy.
Oh.
We want to get as smooth as possible so that every part of the little cutting is making contact with the inside of that existing tree. Alright, let's straighten out maybe just a little bit more. So I'll finish straightening this out, and then I'll show you what it looks like in the end. Okay, so this is what our cutting looks like once we've cut it down. A very, very thin layer. So the next process is going to be to go and pick a branch where this can be grafted onto. Okay, so now we're looking at some branches here that would be a good choice for grafting onto. Initially, you want to look at branches that look really healthy. These super green branches that just go straight up, they're called water suckers, and usually they just drain the tree. Most of the nutrients and water go to those. Usually you want to get rid of those. I leave them for when I want to graft, because then my graft will more than likely take. I'll show you an example of one of the grafts that I did on a water sucker. If you look at this branch, it's super green compared to the other branches. See, this is a regular branch here. This is a water sucker, but look at that graft. It's looking nice and healthy. It took already, and but now my next option of a really healthy branch would probably be this one over here on this side. So this branch here would probably be the healthiest one. You see the thickness of it, how green it is, how healthy the leaves look. But it's right in the center of the tree. I want all my grafts on the edges, so that I can have the different varieties on opposite ends. But anyhow, this branch I think is good because it's still gonna have some shade by this branch. It's still gonna have this branch's shade onto this one. So I think this is gonna be our branch. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut maybe a little bit higher to make sure that we don't cut too...
Let's see here.
I cut a little bit higher in case I need to actually stay higher, and then I'll start getting rid of all of these leaves here. You can do that by hand, or you can cut them off, but you want to be careful not to skin the branch as you do that. So you got to be careful, kind of push in and down at the same time. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is cut into the branch to make our cleft cutting. Okay, so I've cut my branch off. I've made an area where I'm gonna cut. Now we're gonna go right in the middle of the branch, and we're gonna start cutting. Very carefully, watch your fingers. You're gonna work your way, since it's a green branch, it's easier to cut. Work your way down to about the length of the cutting that you're gonna put in there. Now, you don't want to go too far, and if you go down further, you want to make sure you cover that up with your grafting tape. Otherwise, you'll risk mold or humidity getting in there and something damaging that graft. So now that we're cut, we're gonna take our graft, our cutting, and this is the mistake that most people make, is that they want to go right in the middle here. They want to go right in the middle, and that's not where that's not where all the nutrients travel. They travel on the edge, and that divider of the green and the bark, the green and the trunk. So let's see here. We're gonna go in here right close to the edge and see that the green, the bark of this tree is thicker than this little cutting. So we're gonna go in a little bit further to make sure that these cambium layers align. Let's try that again. Okay, so here we are. That's nice and aligned. Now there's two different things that we're gonna do. We're gonna wrap the tree portion of this graft with a green shrinking tape. We're gonna make sure we cover it all up very tightly, because we don't want any moisture getting into this part. Now the cutting, we're gonna wrap with buddy tape or parafilm because we don't want any moisture getting out. So this one we don't want moisture getting in, this one we don't want moisture getting out. Okay, so we have our cutting into our branch. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut. One thing I did want to cover is that you know, I've heard that the stock that you put a cutting onto can affect the taste of the fruit. So what I do is I put my lemons on a lemon tree and my sweets with sweets. So in this case we have a Tangelo orange, and we're putting it on this grapefruit tree, which is it's more of the more acidic type of citruses, but it's still technically a sweet. But we're gonna find out, right, eventually. Let's see. So the next thing we're gonna do is gonna leave some room on one end. You're gonna start way at the bottom where you see the cutting. You want to make sure that cut is nice and covered. You're gonna hold with one side, and you're gonna pull, kind of stretch nice and tight. And this is very important because this is the part of the tape that's gonna be on here for the longest. All right, we're gonna go around. So this is doing two things. This is protecting that cut from being exposed, and it's holding this cutting in place. So now I'm gonna go over, pull down, and you see how I created a seal here? That nice seal. That's what we're looking for to protect this branch. Then we're gonna make our way down again. All right. And now that we've reached this end, we're gonna tie it up. Okay, so that's our union. The next thing is gonna be to wrap up our cutting with buddy tape. It's this all like an organic material or biodegradable material. Eventually, you're gonna leave that on. Eventually, with the rain and the sun, it's gonna fall apart, and it's made in a way that when these little branches start to grow, they're gonna rip right through this material. So let's pick a piece of tape, maybe about 6 to 8 inches long. Depends on the length of your cutting. And we're gonna start stretching it slightly. Stretches every which way. We're gonna put it on top first. Make sure we get a nice tight seal on there. And then we're gonna work our way down, wrapping the rest of this. Okay, so like I said, this is wrapped to prevent humidity from entering that split or that cut. And this is wrapped to prevent this from losing humidity, because that's its lifeline, right? The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cover it with a bag. You can get any bag from, you know, like your grocery store, or your veggie bags that you get at the store. We have these little doggy bags that we use for when we walk our dog, but you can use that, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna put this on top. And you're gonna come past the first wrap of tape, and you're gonna basically tape that on. You're gonna tape this on to that. Not too tight, but tight enough to where the humidity is not gonna escape, and it's gonna create somewhat of a greenhouse effect. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna come and check on this. You're gonna leave this here for maybe 4 weeks, and that cutting is gonna get hyper green, like it's gonna get super green, and that's kind of a sign that it's taking. It's kind of a sign that it's taking, and you can see it through the bag, especially if you use a clear grocery bag, you'll see it very clearly. But this cutting is gonna get super green, and eventually you'll start seeing these little buds coming out and ripping through this material. Now, when this happens, don't take the buddy tape off. Don't unwrap it, because you'll risk knocking these new branches off. They're very, very fragile at this point. So that's it. That's pretty much it. We're gonna leave this in place for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then after that, when we see the new growth start coming out, you can take the bag off, and in about, I'd say maybe about 4 or 5 months, depends. You have to kind of go by ear, but in about 4 or 5 months, you're gonna take the main tape off where the union took place. You're gonna take that tape off and inspect it. If you start seeing the scarring and the bark that starts to have a union already, then you can leave it off. If you see that it still looks a little bit not completely healed, then you can retape it and check on it in another few weeks or a couple months. But that's about it. Thanks for watching our video.